Alright, so I've begun a cleaning initiative. I threw away a ton of the cardboard that was sitting around here, partially because I had to make more space to work with. Last video where we left off, I revealed that I'm working on a compound turbo setup, and throughout the video I made a few aesthetic changes to the car, one being this Carbonetics vented wide body fender, another being the ducktail spoiler, which is now mounted probably where it's going to remain. We still have to fill in these holes or something, going to have to give the car an overall refresh. In the meantime, gotta get back to the big stuff, the power plant of the car. I got some more goodies back from Colorado from Steven. So let's take a look. So, here we have my new Radiator. It is actually an intercooler that was modified. As you can see, it has a shroud that Steven added to it, and we're going for functionality. It's a bit function over form here, but you put it up against the radiator that was in the car. Okay, so the radiator that was in the car was much taller. This intercooler, it's a little thicker. As you can see here, he welded a couple of 16 AN bungs, and we have a drain plug right here. We've got back our water nicks with welded 16 AN bungs to accompany the bungs on the radiator. AN lines, well, AN bungs, ready to go.
Fellow local DSMer Kevin hooked me up with these nice wheel spacers for the DSM.
Alright, before I tighten it down, I love these spacers already. I think that's exactly, oh shoot, I think that's exactly what the car needs, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these down. Alright, gotta do the same thing on the other side. I need to take off the dipstick so I can bend it. Oh. That was easier than I was expecting it to be. Will this actually release the whole dipstick? I hope so. Will it create a whole mess? Hopefully not. Almost out. Alright, the couple of extra belts I ordered finally got here. Let's go ahead and see if either of them work. I don't know which one's necessarily for which, but I'm just gonna give both a shot. I do think, this being the larger one, it is intended for the crank and water pump. Alright, so I just finished putting on the belts that just came in, and wow, they are much better. With the Saturn alternator, you're typically supposed to use the bottom hole for the mounting bracket. What advises you to use the bottom hole, I use the top because it seemed with this belt it would be the best way to fit it, and it seems to fit fantastically. So I think it's actually fine to put back on the intake manifold and all that now. Sure looks like the crank and water pump belt as well as the alternator belt are nice and taut, both of them. So yeah, I think I'm gonna reassemble, scratch that. I need to leave this open until I find a 2GA intermediate shaft to replace this one with, because this alternator kit, it was made for the 2GB, the 2G 6-bolt conversion. I have a 7-bolt motor, and the half shaft that goes with it, the intermediate shaft, I'm pretty sure it's okay to use those terms interchangeably. This bolt does not line up with where the bottom alternator bolt goes. So I am gonna wait before sealing all this up because it's easiest to reach these bolts from the top. And just in case anything else comes up, yeah, that's how I'm going to go about this for now. As for Project Compound Turbo, I've taken off the dipstick, it's over there, to try and bend it, hitting it with the blowtorch and hoping it'll bend eventually. Feels sketchy, but that's what I'm doing. I have to figure out how to get the housing for the red to float right about here in this little area that I've made space in. And you may be asking yourself, how is he going to make all this work? I'm still figuring that out. I need to build or find a bracket that will allow the FP red to float right about here so I can have the connections in the most convenient location. There are other ways to do this, I'm well aware of that, but this is the way that I'm planning on going right now. So this may turn into a bit of a waiting game of finding the right components to make sure that it stays secure. So on to the next thing. All right, so we have got here, very important piece. Oh, it's beautiful. 2GA Halfshaft. Let's get it in the car. Maybe I will have to disassemble all this, but let's see how easily the Halfshaft comes out first. If this can come out the top, that would simplify things quite a bit. It's kind of inconvenient. The car is parked this way. I may have completely ruined this axle. I hope not. Okay, I've got to separate the Halfshaft from the axle. And I've done this before. I don't know why I'm struggling now. Separate. Maybe it's because I dislodged the Halfshaft. I should not have. I prematurely removed this bolt. I really didn't want to do this, but it's probably the best way to remove the Halfshaft rather than trying to avoid removing the axle. I'm just going to go ahead and pull it all the way out. I'm already afraid that I've damaged the stock axles. You could say that they deserve an upgrade, but it's not in the cards right now. Cotter pins can be a little tricky. All right. Now I can pull the axle. Oh, my legs are hurting and my back. All right, got it all to come out together. All right, the old Halfshaft and the axle seems to be fine. Doesn't seem to want to separate. Here's the difference. It should bolt right up where it's supposed to go. In fact, I may go ahead and put the Halfshaft in first, then get to putting the axle back in the car. You can see a bit of fluid from the transfer case. A few wires tracing around. Maybe I should put it in from the bottom, just to make sure it doesn't get snagged up on anything. I'm gonna disconnect the fuel pressure regulator. Put the fat part down first. Ah, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. There we go. And voila, alternator bolt lines up, and that stock engine bolt also lines up. I definitely have to disconnect the alternator bolt. Everything's tightened down. I don't think it'll move too much. Okay, I need to use a bolt much longer than this one. All right, we should be in business. One bolt to the block, the other bolt through the alternator bracket. All right, now to separate the old axle from the old Halfshaft. Oh, I may have got it there. Heck yeah. Let's reinstall the axle now. All right, I've got just about everything ready to seal it back up. So I'm glad I went against my admittedly somewhat stubborn nature and went ahead and just took the whole thing off, because this all looks good. It's put back together, and I think it's safe to seal back up the intake manifold. Actually, I may take the opportunity to do one last thing here. This is my wideband wires that unfortunately got really torn up by my CV axle while on the way to the autocross event. And as you can see, these butt connectors, they're only so tight. I was putting them on underneath the car while at Nashville Superspeedway on the paddock. This one may be on the best. I don't want to accidentally cut it shorter. There we go. I fortunately have a more permanent solution for this, so I'm going to go ahead and try and fix it. This is my old tattered wiring harness that I replaced a few months ago. I'm gonna steal the wideband connector, try and not make too big of a mess while doing it. Do it like this. I don't know if all these wires will fit through. Oh, they do. Check that out. Fresh wideband connector, and I have a backup sensor that will be able to plug directly into this. So now I should be able to seal this up, make sure the alternator is tight and all that, and yeah, I added a ground to the back of the alternator going to the body of the car. Now I think it's good to seal up after I put back on the tire. Alright, I think I've arrived at my stopping point for the evening. I've got the intake manifold back on and most things plugged back in over here. The alternator has now taken the place of the AC compressor. I've got that ground going to the wall. I've got the belts on. Hopefully I will not have to disconnect all of this anytime soon, because that would be a real pain. But yeah, now we're gonna move to the front, where first we're gonna focus on mounting this new thing that I just got that I'm now going to show you, I guess. This is my Maven Mount that I will use to mount the turbo to the block somewhere around here. I'm gonna MIG weld to it. It's made of stainless steel, at least I'm pretty sure it is. And this is my first honestly high stakes welding project because it's going to be holding the FP Red. That's probably what I'm going to focus on working on tomorrow.